Yesterday, I spoke with Warren's wife Elaine and Prime Minister Renzi of Italy. As a husband and as a father, I cannot begin to imagine the anguish. That the Weinstein and Loporto families are enduring today. I realize that there are no words that can ever equal their loss. I know that there is nothing that I can ever say or do to ease their heartache. And today, I simply want to say this. As President and as Commander-in-Chief, I take full responsibility for all our counter-terrorism operations. Including the one that inadvertently took the lives of Warren and Giovanni. I profoundly regret what happened. On behalf of the United States government, I offer our deepest apologies to the families. As soon as we determine the cause of their deaths. I directed that the existence of this operation be declassified and disclosed publicly. I did so because the Weinstein and Loporto families deserve to know the truth. And I did so because even as certain aspects of our national security efforts have to remain secret in order to succeed. The United States is a democracy committed to openness in good times and in bad. Our initial assessment indicates that this operation was fully consistent with the guidelines under which we conduct counter-terrorism efforts in the region. Which has been our focus for years because it is the home of Al-Qaeda's leadership. And based on the intelligence that we had obtained at the time. Including hundreds of hours of surveillance, we believed that this was an Al-Qaeda compound. That no civilians were present, and that capturing these terrorists was not possible. and we do believe that the operation did take out dangerous members of Al-Qaeda. What we did not know, tragically, is that Al-Qaeda was hiding the presence of Warren and Giovanni in this same compound. It is a cruel and bitter truth that in the fog of war generally and our fight against terrorists specifically, mistakes, sometimes deadly mistakes, can occur. But one of the things that sets America apart from many other nations one of the things that makes us exceptional is our willingness to confront squarely our imperfections and to learn from our mistakes. Already, I have directed a full review of what happened. We will identify the lessons that can be learned from this tragedy, and any changes that should be made. We will do our utmost to ensure it is not repeated. And we will continue to do everything we can to prevent the loss of innocent lives, not just innocent Americans. But all innocent lives in our counter-terrorism operations. Today we join their families and friends in honoring Warren and Giovanni too. Humanitarians who came from different countries but who were united by a spirit of service. For decades, Warren lived the ideals of our country. Serving with the Peace Corps and later with the United States Agency for International Development. He devoted his life to people across Africa and South Asia. He was a loving husband, father, and grandfather who willingly left the comforts of home to help the people of Pakistan. At the time of his abduction, he was a USAID contractor focused on helping Pakistani families escape poverty and give a better life to their children. Giovanni's humanitarianism also took him around the world to the Central African Republic. To Haiti and ultimately Pakistan. Like Warren, he fell in love with Pakistan and its people. And believed passionately that he could make a difference in their lives. Giovanni's service reflected the commitment of the Italian people. Are great allies and friends, to the security and dignity of people around the world. And today is a reminder of the bonds of friendship between our countries and the shared values that bind Americans and Italians together. There could be no starker contrast between these two selfless men and their Al-Qaeda captors. Warren's work benefited people across faiths. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda boasted to the world that it held Warren, citing his Jewish faith. Al-Qaeda held both men for years, even as Warren's health deteriorated. They deprived these men of precious, irreplaceable years with family who missed them terribly. Amid grief that is unimaginable, I pray that these two families will find some small measure of solace in knowing that Warren and Giovanni's legacy will endure. Their service will be remembered by the Pakistani men, women and children whose lives they touched and made better. Their spirit will live on in the love of their families, who are in our thoughts and prayers today. Especially Warren's wife Elaine, their daughters Elisa and Jennifer, and their families. and the shining example of these two men will stand as a light to people the world over who see suffering and answer with compassion. Who see hatred and offer their love, who see war and work for peace. May God bless these two brave men, and may He watch over and comfort their families for all the years to come. Barack Obama. U.S. Government's Hostage Policy Review Statement. Delivered June 24, 2015, White House, Washington, D. C. Good afternoon. Since 9/11, more than 80 Americans have been taken hostage. By murderous groups engaged in terrorism or privacy piracy. For these innocent men and women, tourists, journalists, humanitarians, it's a horror, and cruelty, beyond description. For their families and for their friends. It's an unrelenting nightmare that the rest of us cannot even begin to imagine. As a government, we should always do everything in our power to bring these Americans home safe and to support their families. Dedicated public servants across our government work tirelessly to do so. Our military personnel risk their lives in dangerous missions. Such as the operation I authorized last year that attempted to rescue Americans held in Syria and Yemen. And there have been successes, such as the rescue of Captain Richard Phillips. Held by Somali pirates, and Jessica Buchanan, rescued from Somalia. Of these more than 80 Americans taken hostage since 9/11, more than half have ultimately come home. Some after many years. Tragically, too many others have not. And at this very moment, Americans continue to be held by terrorist groups or detained unjustly by foreign governments. For them, the nightmare goes on, and so does our work, day and night, to reunite them with their loved ones. As I've said before, the terrorist threat is evolving. The world has been appalled by ISIL's barbaric murder of innocent hostages, including Americans. Moreover, the families of hostages have told us, and they've told me directly, about their frequent frustrations in dealing with their own government. How different departments and agencies aren't always coordinated. How there's been confusion and conflicting information about what the government is prepared to do to help. How they've often felt lost in the bureaucracy. And how, in some cases, families feel that they've been threatened. For exploring certain options to bring their loved ones home. That's totally unacceptable. As I've gotten to know some of these families and heard some of these stories, it has been my solemn commitment to make sure that they feel fully supported in their efforts to get their families home. And that there is a syncing up of what I know to be sincere, relentless efforts within government and the families who obviously have one priority and one priority only, and that's getting their loved ones back. These families have already suffered enough. and they should never feel ignored or victimized by their own government. Diane Foley, whose son Jim was killed by ISIL last year, said, "As Americans, we can do better." I totally agree. We must do better. And that's why I ordered a comprehensive review of our hostage policy. I want to thank everybody who contributed to this review inside and outside of government. Some of whom are here today. I especially want to thank the former hostages and families who contributed. I've come to know some of these families, often under the most heartbreaking of circumstances. When her son, Peter, also known as Abdul Rahman, was being held in Syria. His mother Paula Kasig wrote me a letter. And in it, she described how on clear nights she and her husband would look up at the stars and the moon and wonder if perhaps their son might be able to see them, too, a reminder of the bond they might still share. I've called these families to offer our condolences after they've received gut-wrenching news no parents ever want to hear. I've visited with them. I've hugged them. I've grieved with them. I just spent time with some of the families. As well as some former hostages here at the White House. And needless to say, it was a very emotional meeting. Some are still grieving. I thank them for sharing their experiences and their ideas with our review team. In fact, many of the changes we're announcing today are a direct result of their recommendations. I acknowledge to them in private what I want to say publicly, that it is true that There have been times where our government, regardless of good intentions, has let them down. I promised them that we can do better. Here's how.